What is going on, YouTube? I am coming at you again with a movie review, and tonight I will be reviewing 2019 version of Shaft. And yeah, many of you may not have known it was coming out like myself, but it is. It comes out in theaters June 14th, and even with that being said, expectations was low going into it, but I'm out of it now, and I will say I had a lot of fun with this movie. So starting off, this movie was directed by Tim Story. Now, Tim Story is somebody that, well, there was some good and there was some bad. There was, the first Fantastic Four, whatever. But he's done other movies like Barbershop, Think Like a Man, and what else did he do? And Ride Along. How can I forget about Ride Along? And automatically too, this movie absolutely feels like Ride Along. Not two, but one. Ride Along one, which was really good as far as like the execution of that version of a buddy cop film where the jokes kind of landed in the spots that it needed to land. And I think this movie did one really strong thing. You had Samuel L. Jackson just be the star that he always is, and he absolutely shined in this movie. I mean, so good, so funny. Just your Samuel L. Jackson that you expect him to be. Even to the point that I even started to question, like, was the audio mixing kind of like messed up, because Samuel Jackson was just so much higher than other people at times that it was just, which is good, but it was just like I don't really hear anybody else but Samuel, but he was so funny, and his his style of funniness with his punchline and his comedic one-liners and so forth. But before I talk about the story, Regina Hall's in this movie, who plays Shaft, old fling, and then they end up having a kid. Who's played by Jesse T. Usher, who becomes John Shaft Jr. Now, Jesse T. Usher is, you may remember him as the son of Will Smith from Independence Day 2, I think they were calling it, whatever it may be. I don't even know what else he was even in. Oh, Survivor's Remorse was a TV show, whatever. I'm just looking at it real quick. But yeah, not a fan. Not a fan at all. Not a fan of him, period. As far as the other roles I've seen him in, not a fan of him in this movie. It just didn't do it for me. I mean, considering that he is supposed to be Shaft's son, you would expect him to have some level of, some level of humor to him, but it didn't even land. And considering that his son took a different avenue and growing up than he did, he didn't have. Well, I'll talk about the story in a little bit. I'm just trying to figure out who else is on here. Oh, Alexander Shipp, who you may know from Storm from the X-Men series, the younger X-Men series. So X-Men Dark Phoenix, Apocalypse. She played his childhood friend. She was in this. I'm trying to think of some other people that was in there too. Method Man had a role in it as well. Trying to think, there was someone else I wanted to remember that was in this movie. Oh yeah. I get to it to the story. But anyway, so basically what happens here, back in 1980, Shaft, being who he is, a pretty much rogue detective, trying to solve a case. Regina Hall was played as his ex fling girlfriend, whatever you want to call her at the time. And upon one case that he was trying to crack, kind of put her at danger, where one of the biggest drug lord gangs of New York, Harlem, New York, opened up fire on him. And he kind of like played the nonchalant, in typical Shaft character, really didn't care about family or anything like that, and just, all about his business. Kind of found out towards that scene his son was in the back seat, and he had his son in danger as well too. He kind of embraced the thing is, in this scene you see him really choose to be Shaft over being the dad, which happens to be a thing throughout the movie. The movie does fast forward to modern times, where you see the son grow up. Each birthday, Shaft ends up sending him a gift, not present in his life, even though they're in the same city. You see him growing up. He goes to college. He lands a job with the FBI. So he goes about it a different avenue than what Shaft did, where he's going working for the man, and Shaft doesn't work for the man, doesn't believe in working for the man. But one important, really important thing about this movie, as I start to break down what's happening in this movie, do not, under no circumstance, do not take this movie serious. Remember what this movie is. Do not ever start thinking about, oh, well, the FBI would never do that, or somebody could never do that, or how come somebody couldn't get shot there, whatever it may be. Do not, do not take this. Again, this is a Tim Story, directed by Tim Story, and if you've seen any of his other movies, it does follow that nature of tone where the movies does have, could be implied as serious plots and things, but again, it's just not supposed to be taken serious. It is, again, a more of a, you know, the comedy is going to be in these movies. But as I'm looking down my notes, they play a lot of the classic old soundtracks from a lot of the older Shaft movies. Also, they play a good mixture of through the years good New York songs that you recognize from over the years. Really good, really, like, I love the soundtrack, and I also love old school New York music. So I think they did a really good job as far as that. But again, like Shaft from over the years, because of his, I'm not gonna say addiction, but because of his like willingness to be that figure of being Shaft, being respected throughout the city by everybody, he kind of puts his family. He put Shaft before his family. He was never able to solve this crime, and ultimately that addiction to wanting to be Shaft and putting his family second ultimately broke up the fact of him not being there for his son, losing Regina Hall's character, and it broke up their family. But moving into the present time, the son who works for the FBI has a friend, who I say one of the friends is played by Regina Ship, and then his other friend is played by, I forget his name. Anyway, he has oh, let me make sure I'm correct here. Anyway, he has another friend as well. So it's the three of them, and one of his friends ends up running into him. He's freshly back from deployment, being out of the military, decides to get into a military like recovery group as far as like military vets who's been struck out on drugs and stuff like that. They end up getting back together, all three of them hanging out. Fast forward, the guy friend of theirs ends up being murdered, which will end up dying. Where it is implied that he overdosed, where they come to find out that it was a little bit more deeper than an overdose. It was not an accidental death. Alexander Ship's character is a nurse, so they end up looking at the report, finding out that the amount of heroin that they say was in the body is not really consistent with what would kill a person. It's actually way more than what would take to kill a person. So he would have instantly been dead, and not actually be how it was kind of staged. So they are determined to figure out what was the true nature of their friend dying. So because he's an FBI agent, he decides to do his investigation. He doesn't get much leads, but he ends up deciding that he needs to call on the help of his dad. So this is the point where Shaft and Shaft Jr. end up building a friendship, more or less a relationship, and you see the two different styles of problem or crime solving that the two of them have. Where Samuel Jackson's Shaft is more vigilant. He does what he wants to do. Where Jesse T. Usher's character, Shaft Jr., decides to play by the system and really hesitant about some of the tactics that his dad would traditionally do. But again, you do see how the two different methods kind of has them disagreeing at a time, but ultimately they end up creating a partnership that ultimately leads them throughout this movie. This movie does use a lot of classic Shaft humor and a lot of new modernized humor as well too. Really, really funny. Samuel Jackson, I can't say enough. He's just a star when it comes to roles like this. I mean, anything he does, he's really good. He's always gonna have his wittiness in certain situations, and I mean, they really got it together here, and I really, 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 really like every bit of him on the screen at all times in this movie. I did feel like at times that the movie did go. I felt like so again in the beginning of this movie, I wasn't totally invested in it because I didn't know what I thought this movie was going to be. Low expectations. I immediately wanted to say like, oh, this feels like a movie that I would just rent and whatever. But progressively through the movie, I thought it got better and better, and actually enjoyed it. I think it is a good movie that's going to draw a significant amount of people to go see it, and I think it is a fun movie to go see. Again, the humor was there, the music was there. I think it went maybe just a tad bit longer than I would have wanted it to be. I asked a few people around me. They said they thought it was fine. I thought it was just a little bit longer than I had wanted it to be. But at the very end, I mean, you got some really good stuff that happened. I thought this movie used not a lot, very minimal, but very, really interesting and cool ways of the way they used their CGI in this movie. Thought some of the shots of that was really cool. But at the very end, you got a really, really good scene where you got the first Shaft and Richard Roundtree returning, who is Samuel Jackson's Shaft the second father, and you get the three of them all together, and ultimately you see Jesse T. Usher's Shaft, who dressed different. He was an MIT boy, so he wore skinny jeans and ties. You ultimately see him embrace his bloodline towards it, and the three of them, they fight crime together. A really good like moment at the end. It was really tight to see a lot of people reprise their roles, and I just really enjoyed that. But ultimately, again, I'm just really not. I wasn't a big fan of Jesse T in this movie. I didn't think he provided. I think anybody else could have did that role. To be honest, like it just wasn't it for me. But I am interested to see where this movie does. This franchise or this what do we want to call reboot? In other words, I would love to see where it's going to go for, as it looks like it's going to be doing that as well too. The Migos did a remix version of the Shaft original theme. Thought that was pretty dope. I liked it, but again, I went into this movie not thinking much of it, and I thought progressively through the movie, I enjoyed it more and more and more, and I think it is a movie that people should definitely check out. But yeah, this is Shaft, the 2019 version of it. It was going to be dropping June 14th in theaters, and you definitely, I think you should you give it a look and let me know what you think about it when it comes out. But again, thanks for tuning in for this review, and I will ultimately catch you. I got some more stuff coming this week, so stay tuned, and thanks for tuning in.